Thank you, Ben, and thanks everybody for coming today during your lunch break. So the topic is using fit for purpose in SAFe. So Fit for Purpose is a book by David J. Anderson and Alexei Zegloff. You may recognize Anderson's name. He's the guy who came up with the Kanban method. He's the creator of that. And so the agenda, you can look at my background in the deck if you're interested in my contact information there. The agenda for today is what is the problem to be solved? What are we trying to do, and how can Fit for Purpose help us with metrics? So there is a problem to be solved, and that is that we have a gazillion types of metrics, and we kind of use them all the same, and maybe we shouldn't do that. So we're also going to do a high-level overview of what's called the Fit for Purpose score, and we might then want to reconsider SAFe metrics from the perspective of Fit for Purpose. So Fit for Purpose is agnostic. It's it can be applied to any framework, any context, any situation where there's metrics involved, not just SAFe. I'm just using SAFe as an example because SAFe has a gazillion metrics, and that's kind of problematic. There's also there's also a summary chart connecting the four Fit for Purpose metric categories to SAFe, and then we'll talk a little bit about next steps, what your next steps might be. So the problem to be solved: there's a multitude of metrics in SAFe. All SAFe metrics are treated as equal, it seems sometimes. Metrics can drive behavior, both good or bad, and not knowing which metrics are more important very well may drive bad behavior. So maybe we can use Fit for Purpose criteria to alleviate this problem. And so if you read the book by Anderson and Zegloff, they talk about four types or categories of metrics. We got our wonderful vanity metrics. We got general health indicators, improvement indicators, and fitness criteria, also known as key performance indicators. We confuse these things quite often, and if you treat them all the same, then you might not get the outcomes that you're seeking. So a little bit more information about the four types of metrics that come out of the book. So vanity metrics these metrics have an emotional need that may need to be addressed either culturally or organizationally. If more is always better or makes you look good without really being good, it might be a vanity metric. General health indicators, on the other hand, is kind of like a heartbeat type of thing. It monitors the health and stability of a business. Typically, these indicators have a range within which no action is required with upper and lower limits. A significant or dramatic change in a general health indicator result may indicate a change affecting business stability. Then you have your improvement drivers, and improvement drivers have a target to be achieved over time through improved capability. And lastly, we have the fitness criteria, KPIs. These are used to select by customers and users to select your product or service in the market. These types of things have an acceptable performance threshold. They also have a secondary threshold for overserving. So you could underserve or overserve, right? Examples of fitness criteria KPIs are lead time, quality, predictability, safety and performance, and affordability. Only fitness criteria can actually be key performance indicators, okay? Only these can actually be key performance indicators. So think back in your own job where people are throwing out the term KPI, and is it really a fitness criteria, or is it a vanity metrics, general health indicator, or an improvement driver? Misuse of metrics will give you probably different outcomes than what you are seeking. So the question is, how are you categorizing your metrics? So what we're going to do is, hold on for a sec. We're actually going to go and do a little exercise in Mural. And I forgot to get the little share link here, so bear with me for a sec. I'm going to give you the visitor link. And I'm going to put it in the chat window. for everybody in Zoom. Okay, would everybody be so kind? You have to log on to this by using a Chrome-based browser. Mural doesn't really like Firefox or Safari. So please log on using a Chrome-based browser. That would be Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Vivaldi, Brave. Those are the ones that I know that are Chrome-based. And I'm going to turn off the cursors and hide the cursor so it doesn't drive everybody crazy. And I'm going to summon you to where I'm at, which is right here that shows the 4 types of metrics. Ben, do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out here and I'm going to take us to, we have a little Kanban board type of thing looking here, just a little thing where I put all kinds of different kinds of metrics here. What I'd like you all to do, I'm going to zoom in here. What I'd like you all to do is just start to categorize them, pull them over to either the vanity metrics, the general health indicator, the improvement drivers, or the fitness criteria, KPI area. Just go and pull them over where you think they should be. Go ahead and do that.
Okay.
There's a lot of metrics here, right? I mean, if you work in an enterprise, there are a gazillion metrics. Whether you use SAFe or not, you may be actually using some of these metrics.
So parenting this.
All right, just got a couple more. Help me out. Okay, we just have one more left. We got the lobster, it looks like, that's clicked on that, so nobody else can move it. If you're the lobster, please move it or unclick it. It's on % complete and accurate. Whoever's the lobster. All right. Okay. All right. So here we have, we've categorized all this stuff, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the slide deck, and we're going to learn a little bit more about fit for purpose, and then come back to that, what we came up with. So this is a definition for vanity metrics. Vanity metrics are often mistakenly categorized into one of the 3 other three categories by their main or even sole purpose is to make an individual, team, a department, or a business unit feel good. Vanity metrics are the magic mirror that make the organization look good in reflection. The reality, however, is that they aren't useful for anything beyond emotional crutch and the psychological well-being of the staff. We know they are vanity metrics because they don't predict desirable outcomes or customer satisfaction. So they are not fitness criteria. They aren't key performance indicators. They don't drive improvement, and they don't have a target, and they don't indicate general health. Anderson and Zegloff. Okay, so vanity metrics are metrics that make you feel good without being good and allow an individual, team, or organization to literally lie to themselves, even when they're looking directly straight into the mirror. Right? I'm sorry, was there a comment? Okay, if you're not speaking, if you could go on mute, I sure would appreciate it. So a metric may be a vanity metric if it does not predict desirable outcomes or customer satisfaction, if it does not drive improvement and does not have a target, if it does not indicate general health, it may very well be a vanity metric. We got a lot of those running around here. Here's some general types of vanity metrics that you've probably seen out in the world. For example, the popularity statistic for a leader in the organization, as it doesn't really indicate effectiveness, improvement, or general health. Airline industry's on-time departure percentage metric versus something that would not be a vanity metric, on-time arrival percentage metric. Profit per store versus profit per visit in the convenience store industry. Productivity of an individual versus productivity of a team or productivity of a team of teams. Increase shareholder wealth or maximize corporate value. This was actually promoted by Jack Welch for many years when he was the CEO at GE. This is really toxic, actually, as a strategic theme or a KPI. Welch is quoted as saying that what he did was the stupidest thing that he ever promoted. Okay, so vanity metrics happen at all levels of the organization. In SAFe, the following metrics are valuable when used for planning purposes, but when used as a performance metric rather than a general health indicator, are typically considered a vanity metric. So velocity, whether it's team or program, the number of features delivered per PI, the number of stories delivered per PI or iteration, and APMOs and LACEs, the Agile PMOs or the Lean Agile Centers of Excellence, they can be vain too. The number of ARTs launched without any type of quality characteristics per time period, or the number of employees trained without passing a certification exam per time period, or the number of classes held per time period. We use those metrics. You will see this in the literature in SAFe, that these are metrics, but the way that they're used makes them vanity metrics. So general health indicators. So this is the pulse, but they do not affect customers' choices, right? They are vital signs like a heartbeat. So when they crash, when these metrics crash, we may be given an advance warning that we're in danger of missing our fitness criteria. So, low or high scores, depending on the scale, on a self-assessment or a sudden change of a general health indicator up or down require a reevaluation of the business's strategy and operations. You will see in large enterprises, they love assessments and self-assessments. And so the way that we go and look at these self-assessments is very interesting as well. They are simply a general health indicator. They are not a performance indicator. These are performance indicators, the following, but they are not key. They're not key performance indicators, right? So many of the metrics that you're probably already tracking are more likely to be general health indicators rather than KPIs, key performance indicators or fitness criteria. So general health indicators won't have an ideal level or target, but there should be a reasonable range and can be allowed to vary within a defined healthy range without intervention. Okay. So here's some examples in the world. We have heart rate, blood pressure, weight. I know that this is a general health indicator. My weight, I'm always worried about my weight. You know, am I going in the right direction? Staff attrition, turnover rate. This is a general health indicator. Net Promoter Score, NPS. A lot of organizations are using NPS in a way other than a general health indicator, and it causes all kinds of problems. Net Promoter Score, NPS, is a metric used in innovation accounting, is a versatile metric, and has been used as criteria when purchasing stock. Some actually recommend buying stocks of companies with high NPS scores. However, Anderson and Zeglov recommend a replacement for NPS called the Fit for Purpose score. And we do a fitness box survey to do this. So in SAFE, any of the health radar assessments are really just general health indicators. NPS, same thing. All these things that are listed here are general health indicators, okay? When we do value stream metrics even, the percent complete and accurate, the rolled percent complete and accurate, the activity or efficiency ratio of the step or the system, the rolled activity ratio, these are just general health indicators. They are not performance metrics, okay? They allow us to start seeing things in a different way and look for improvement perhaps in that area. Give us a warning ahead of time as well. There are parts of the DevOps Health Radar self-assessment also, which are clearly just general health indicators. There are others that are more associated with KPIs. So an improvement indicator, that's the third type. If there is motivation to change the result of a metric, either up or down, due to the current context, this metric may be considered an improvement indicator. Improvement indicators have a target value to be achieved over time. An improvement driver associated with an improvement indicator is often called a stretch goal. This is different than an uncommitted objective in SAFE. Stretch goals and uncommitted objectives are not the same thing. Setting an improvement indicator to a high or low setting as contextually appropriate would have the effect of driving the innovation and improvement because people are trying to reach it. Once the target future state of the metric is achieved, the following can be chosen. We can either reconsider to determine whether the current setting is appropriate or needs to be changed up or down. We can convert that improvement indicator to a general health indicator to prevent setting a metric too high or too low, or we can just get rid of it. We can deprecate that metric. Now, a little bit of a warning, defining an improvement driver with a target as a fitness criterion can produce undesirable effects. Okay, so be very careful about that. And lastly, improvement indicators have a secondary effect intended on influencing fitness criterion or KPIs. For example, achieving a high profit per visit might encourage a company to open up more stores in convenient locations. So in general, examples, high cost per win. Some of you might have watched a movie, Moneyball. This was actually an improvement indicator for in the Moneyball movie. So maintaining a low cost per win ratio will drive innovation improvements. That's what it did for the Oakland A's. Low profit per customer visit versus profit per store, which would be a vanity metric. You can see this in the book Good to Great. They talk about this. Maintaining a high profit per customer visit in the convenience store market will drive innovation and improvements. And high order cancellation rate, that would maintaining a low order cancellation rate would drive innovation and improvements. So we have these situations, we set an improvement indicator and that drive a range and or target, and that gets us thinking about what we can do to improve it. Now in SAFE, there are various events, review of, creation of, and or action on metrics that take place. For example, Here's the list of the things that we have, right? We have the daily stand-up, the iteration review, the iteration retrospective. All these different events are at different levels, right? Examples of improvement indicators that may emerge from iteration retrospectives are also defined down here. So things like the percent of team capacity dedicated to swarming. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are doing Scrum or XP and you don't know what swarming is, you are probably not doing Scrum or XP. This is the basic pattern associated with the way of work, the WOW. And there are 3 techniques to do that. There is pair work, pair programming, and mob programming. So if you're not doing any of that stuff, you're actually not doing Scrum or XP. Percent of automated unit test coverage. The sweet spot might be 80%, but we have a range, general health indicator might be 70 to 85%. Future state target might be 70%. The current state might be less than 10%. Maybe they haven't started doing the XP stuff and TDD stuff yet. Number of BDD scripts per feature or scripts per story. Maybe we're not doing any of that stuff yet. We're not doing behavior-driven development yet. We want to have a future target of at least of 1, and the general health indicator would be 1 as well. Feature toggles to features ratio. Maybe we're not doing any of that yet. Maybe we'll want to have 50% in the future state or as our target, and then the general health indicator might be 50 to 85% range. We're good to go anywhere in there. WIP limits. That's going to be very contextual. Maybe the current state is none. A future state target might be 5. 4 to 6 might be the general health indicator after experimentation. Okay. So improvement indicators are associated with innovation and relentless improvement. So here are all kinds of things that we might want to improve upon. Decreased duplication of work. This is probably one of the #1 things that large organizations benefit from, because this team over here is doing something and that team over there is doing something, and it's actually the exact same thing. They're actually doing double work, same exact work, right? Percent, there's all these different things here. I'm not going to go over each one of them. You can go through this yourself, and in your own context, these are actually improvement indicators, lots of them. So while these metrics are considered general health indicators, if given a normal health range, leadership can set 1 or more of these as an improvement indicator with a lower end target when it becomes apparent that the general health indicator's current state is negatively impacting a fitness criteria. So if your KPIs are being affected because of a general health indicator, then you set 1 of them with a target and a lower end target for that to do the improvement indicator. Now, fitness criteria are key performance indicators, KPIs. And a metric might be a performance indicator without being a key performance indicator. In that case, it should be considered a general health indicator or an improvement indicator, but not a fitness criteria or a KPI, because KPIs affect customers' choices directly. So for each KPI, a level of performance is needed to win customers in each customer segment. So we have 3 different ways to look at the threshold. Is it unfit? That's unacceptable. Is it fit? That's acceptable. Or are we over servicing? Or maybe we have discovered an exceptional situation where there is a new market segment. If the KPI result is above the acceptable threshold, it could be an indication of overserving, which is waste, or exceptional, a differentiator that might be an enabler of market disruption. We may have uncovered something. If you can't describe and validate a threshold, it probably is not a fitness criterion. Often when you are helping people to write epics or features, you typically turn to, how are we going to test this? And okay, so what do you mean, how are we going to test it? Well, how do we know that we've gotten value out of it? Well, how do you define value? Well, for the customer, how do we know that the customer is getting value out of it? How do we know the user is getting value out of it? How are we going to measure that? If you can't measure something, then how do you know that you're actually giving them that value, right? Okay. So there are all kinds of examples of fitness criteria that we've gone over before. I mean, if you look at, so for example, the pizza industry, just, I don't know what it is about Anderson, but he likes talking about how pizzas are made. Maybe he likes eating pizza. I'm not quite sure, but he's fascinated with the production of pizza in all of his writings. So, pizza order time from order to delivery. Unfit might be, if it's depending on the market segment or the persona, greater than 2 hours for an office order is unacceptable, it's unfit. Greater than an hour for a household order. So that could be the same person. I am at work, I'm ordering pizza for my people at work. I'm going to have time to order it. What's acceptable is really 2 hours. If it goes over that, that's not going to be good. If it's over serving would be typically an hour. But when I'm at home, if I have little kids, I'm actually looking for a plain cheese pizza, not a fancy pizza like I might order for the office. And what I'm more interested in is getting it within the hour. And so that is a fitness criteria from my perspective, right? The level of trust in a system. Most of you are working in environments where what you're trying to do is build trust with other people, right? So this is associated with predictability. If there's less than 80% predictability in what you're projecting out or what you're estimating out on when something is going to be delivered, then that's probably going to be unfit. But if it's over 90%, maybe the system's being overserved. And maybe if you have 100% predictability, or maybe if you're delivering more then you're over servicing, right? So it's a range. We have the unfit, the fit, and the overserved. There are others here, I mean, there's all kinds of examples of fitness criteria that can be considered in your environment. So with fit for purpose, for each metric, a level of performance is needed to win customers in each customer segment with thresholds categorized as unfit, fit, or overserving or exceptional. Rarely has SAFe guidance asked for more than one level of threshold. These would need to be added based on the solution context and the solution intent. For example, an agile release train, which is a team of teams of 5 to 12 teams, they have a metric called the program predictability measure, the PPM. And that threshold has, if it's under 80%, it's unfit. If it's 80%, it's fit. If it's over 100%, it's overserved, okay? So we have these types of fitness criteria in SAFe at each one of these levels. We actually use OKRs in SAFe at the portfolio level. So that's objectives and key results, and key results have numbers in them. They say what's good and what's not. Sometimes we'll also have value stream key performance indicators. That's very contextual. Some of them are going to be fitness criteria. Okay? And then I mentioned the program predictability measure. And then there is portions of the team PI performance report that rolls up to the PPM also. Some of that is considered fitness criteria. This is associated, some of the things in the team PI performance report are associated with quality. Now, why are we interested in that? Well, quality helps customers decide whether or not to buy from you. So here is an example of an OKR. The objective might be increase customer engagement on our platform, and you'll notice all of these different key results. All of these key results. These can be used in the form of fitness criteria. Okay, additional fitness criteria. So, bunch of this stuff. Okay, so I actually mentioned this in the very beginning. lead time and its predictability, quality and its predictability, safety and regulatory compliance, price and affordability. These types of things are fitness criteria because they help the customer decide whether or not to buy from you and can continue to buy from you. Now, there are a couple of things on safety and regulatory compliance. All mandated law enforcement regulations are fitness criteria because it's industry specific. In this case, the regulator represents the customer. Okay, so the number of times the regulation milestone not met, number of times fined, costs of fines, et cetera, et cetera. Now, pricing and affordability is kind of a strange thing. Price isn't an independent variable. It varies according to the performance against other fitness criteria. So price and affordability are not used as KPIs directly. Instead, the following might be considered. For example, what kind of customers would be attracted to your product or service at different price levels? So Agile product managers need to figure out how to price their product. What would these customers' purposes be for buying your products or service at these price levels? What would your market segmentation picture look like at each level? What non-financial fitness criteria would matter to customers in each market segment at these price levels? So you have to consider price when you're considering and how it's going to affect fitness criteria. Okay, so we have this thing called F4P score. And so a fit for purpose score is an actionable replacement for net promoter score. So, I've been around for a while, so I've seen NPS used quite a bit in many different companies. A lot of companies live by this and they die by this. And a lot of times they're not even using it properly. They're calling it an NPS, but it's really not NPS. The NPS, it comes from a book called The Ultimate Question. And the ultimate question is, on a scale of 1 through 10, how would you recommend my product, service, et cetera, to a family, friend, coworker? And so a 9 or a 10 is a promoter. A 7 or 8 is neutral, and everything else is a detractor. Typically, you're going to have 10 to 20 promoters to offset one detractor. And if you are in a situation where you are acting as a monopoly and not providing delight to your customers, that is called so you're earning money in a bad way that will actually hurt your brand. So we always have to be cognizant of the fact that if we're making money in a market segment where we have a bunch of really unhappy users or customers, this actually might damage our brand, which might damage our income in other product lines or other market segments. So we have to decide if we have a low NPS score in those, and have bad profit in this area, whether or not we should leave that market segment, or is there a way that we can convert them to happier customers? Okay. So NPS is by itself is not really actionable. Okay, it struggles to answer the question, what evidence do we have that indicates that we are designing, implementing, and service delivering our products and services to correctly serve the identified markets? NPS really struggles with that. And for that reason, NPS really can't be used as a fitness criterion. It's just that general health indicator. However, F4P scores are actionable and can be considered fitness criteria. So Anderson and Zegloff recommend the use of fit-for-purpose score surveys in place of NPS. So to evaluate whether a product or service that is being developed and improved in an evolutionary and experimental fashion is in fact improving in the eyes of the customer, that's why the number one reason why we do this survey, the F4P survey. And the survey results tie the results of the customer surveys directly to actionable metrics or KPIs. For example, if the outcome of this survey indicates that the customers value delivery time and their threshold of tolerance is 2 days, then the KPI for the service should be a lead time with a service level expectation of 2 days. F4 NPS doesn't tell you that. This survey also, it's agnostic. You can use it in Scrum, you can use it in Safe, you can use it in Less. It's agnostic. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. So it's a really basic little card that the person fills out. There are 3 questions. The first question is, tell us why you chose the product or service. And they write in the different reasons or objectives that they have. If you're working in an area where there's some common reasons, you can give that, and then you can say, fill in the blank for other things. For each reason, for each purpose, reason, or objective that they list in question 1, they indicate how fit for purpose they found the product or service at fulfilling that expectation. And then lastly, why did they give that score? Okay, so for each purpose, reason, objective answered in question 1, question 2 asked the person surveyed assign a score of 0 through 5 based on the following scale. 5, my expectations were exceeded. 4, fully met. 3, mostly, but there were some concerns. 2, significant things unaddressed. And 1, I got some value, but most were a net. And 0, I found nothing useful. It was unfit for this purpose. So this is what the card looks like. Okay, this is what the card looks like. And they, like I said, why you put A, B, and C. Why you just write in why you did it, and then for each one of those you rank. You just give it a score, and then you say why. It's really, really quick. In fact, it can be done on an index card, printed out on the size of an index card. So the scoring, 4 to 5, that means it's fit. 3, neutral. 0 to 2, unfit. And we have something called a fitness box score. So those are the 3 reasons. Those are the score for each reason. And this is why each score. Now we're going to look at the fitness box score example. And individual survey results are then tabulated into a fitness box score. So we take all the surveys and we tabulate them. From this analysis, we can see which segment is being served properly or not. And we have this little score. So this is how it works. So the purpose, learn to implement Kanban. That's what we were asking. So let's say that this comes from Anderson's book. So he queries his students as to why they came to the class, and was it fit for purpose, basically, and why. So the purpose, that's learn to implement Kanban. The percent fit, the neutral, and the unfit, that's that number right there. Then we have the number of purposes that people came up with when they were answering the survey, the number of respondents to the total population, and the actual total population. And so they came up with these different customer segments by purpose. These are the things that were grouped. You do affinity grouping when you're doing the analysis. So this can all be used also in what's called the fit for purpose cycle. Fit for purpose cycle. So you may recognize this in design thinking. First, we have to understand what the problem is. Do people have this issue or job to do? Then we have a solution validation, which is, does the proposed solution help with the issue or the job? Design thinking always says, we want to understand the problem before we go to the solution, right? And then market validation, will enough people pay for the solution? Do we have a viable business model? And then the capability validation, do we have the knowledge and skills to create the solution? So we segment our market by customer purpose. And then we determine the criteria customers use to select amongst competitors. And this, we use a powerful call for action on metrics and KPIs now that we know who we're dealing with and why they're buying. Okay. So data from the fit for purpose score can be used in the fit for purpose cycle. We segment our market based on customer purpose. We define functional specifications with thresholds for minimal viable fitness for a segment. We use safety and conformance requirements as table stakes for market segment entry. We define non-functional quality and fidelity requirements with thresholds. We develop tighter requirements by defining fitness criteria. We use price independently as a threshold to enable a segment and vary price based on quality and or lead time. So, safe metrics from a fit for purpose perspective. We got, if you go to the Scaled Agile Framework site and you click on metrics, it basically sums up the a good portion of the metrics by the level. It doesn't do it by the fit, whether it's the fitness criteria or a vanity metric if used in a certain way. It doesn't talk about that stuff, right? So we have to dig into each of these metrics under each of these categories in order to understand safe metrics from the perspective of fit for purpose. In addition, there are all kinds of hidden metrics not listed on this main page that are metrics, and they're all over the place. Okay, I know this is sideways, but when you get your PDF, you can turn it this way. It's the only way, and it gives basically a listing of maps the answer to that previous slide's question. Just which metrics go into which fit for purpose metric category. Okay, so next steps. In general, for metrics to work properly and safe, the following should be put into action. There should be transparency of metrics available to all. There should be transparency of progress of work, for example, Kanban boards, and this is to everybody. We shouldn't say, well, what are those people doing? Well, we should be able to look at the Kanban board. There should be a feedback mechanism. For example, metrics reviewed on a set cadence, data from these fit for purpose score surveys and fit for purpose box analysis. We should have this available and on a regular cadence review it. Control of WIP. Control of WIP, or by time box and Scrum, or WIP limits in Kanban. We should have that in place also. If you don't have that, then your metrics are going to be skewed. Categorization of metrics. So we need to start thinking about, is this a fitness criteria, general health indicator, improvement indicator, or a vanity metric? And call it as such. Call it as such. We need to focus on the fitness criteria first, general health and improvement indicators second, and do away with the vanity metrics over time. There's all kinds of references here as well at the end of the deck for you. And I am done. So are there any questions? Any questions?
Yeah. Jack and Fred.
Yeah.
In the case where you're doing an MPS and you don't get a response, how do you treat that null response? Do you treat it as a neutral or a negative or positive?
We don't take it as any. You're talking for fit for purpose survey? Yeah, we don't. It's a non-answer. We don't consider it anything.
Okay, so if you
they
got
don't answer at all, but a 0 means unfit.
Correct. Yeah, I was looking in terms of if they
don't respond.
Yes, exactly. If the customer's so ambivalent, how should we read that?
Well, if you remember when we do the fitness box score analysis, it says, what was the population and how many people actually answered, right? Mm-hmm. So usually when they answer the survey, they're going to fill all of it out. Typically, people would do that. There are going to be one-offs, and this is kind of like I don't know. I would just throw it out. It's if people don't actually answer, or they scribble on something that's unreadable, or if it's in there might be, for example, somebody that comes to a Kanban class. He actually talks about this. Somebody that comes to a Kanban class and actually does respond and says that everything is unfit, that none of their expectations were met. But they say why, right? They're saying why, and they say what their expectations were, and their expectations are inconsistent with what the purpose of that course was. then this is a market segment that we need to understand and try to stay away from. Because if people are coming to a class, for example, with certain expectations and they're not getting that, then either we have to change what we're doing or we have to prevent them from actually coming to the class. I don't know about you guys who's a trainer in the room, but often you will have people with certain expectations about what Agile will do for them, and they don't understand what this is about. First of all, they don't know what they're getting into. They think that they come to a Scrum Master class and they're going to be an expert after 2 days. If that's the expectation, that's an unreal expectation. And so we can do some things to help prepare potential students before they come into the class to understand what it really does. Some things are just never going to be handled. Let's see, there's a question, under improvement in fitness metric categories, which metrics clients tend to favor and why? So that's the fitness criteria. Fitness criteria is defined as the metrics that help customers make decisions whether or not to buy. Okay, let's see, there is another question. It was, hold on just a sec. It's which of the metrics address psychological safety on the team, which is necessary for continuous improvement? You could do a fitness box score survey, which says things like, what are the things that your expectations of having an environment of psychological safety in order to do continuous improvement? They would do those 3 things, and then they would rank it on 0 through 5 as to whether or not the environment is achieving that. So that's how you could handle that. Can you go back to the fit for purpose card? Yeah, sure. Hold on. Let's go back here. There you go. So let me make it bigger.
Yeah, this is Tor. Yeah, this is Tor. So my question around this is like, can you kind of talk through how might you kind of adapt this, right? So in the context of this Agile, safe in general, right, of trying to work with an organization and help them kind of realize or find fit for purpose. Can you talk to maybe how this could be a tool that you could leverage to kind of help kind of find what that ideal fit for purpose is?
Okay, so you're talking about an internal customer rather than an external customer. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
So that's the very first thing you need to understand is you have to define what customer means. And so you might ask someone, what are the reasons that you want to go do Agile or Safe or Less or Scrum or Kanban, ABC, right? So those are the 3 reasons. Okay, based on these 3 reasons, so far in the transformation, how well are we doing that? Are the expectations met for each one of these 3 things you came up with? And then why is that? And that is actionable. So yeah, this could be used in that way too.
Cool.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We got another question. It says, under improvement category, which stickies metrics have clients ranked the highest and why? So an improvement category is determined by, here, let me go back here. So I got a nice little slide on that. Let's see. Okay, so if there is motivation to change the result of a metric up or down due to the current context, this metrics can be considered an improvement indicator, right? So how would we know that? Well, we would know that because of the fit for purpose survey. We would know that there is some type of gap and we have a fitness criteria, and the fitness criteria is being affected. The customer, maybe customers are leaving. They're not happy. The number of turnover that we have with customers is increasing, which is a general health indicator, right? We would then set an improvement indicator which would be a target, right? So we set an improvement indicator to a high or low setting as contextually appropriate, with having the effect of driving innovation and improvement. So remember who is filling out the fitness box score survey? It is the person that is the customer, whether it's an external customer or an internal customer. Okay. Does that help?
Yeah.
I'm not sure who that came from, so I don't know. Okay, so my question was referring to the mural. So you remember that last slide that I gave you on that was sideways instead of up and down? That's the answer. That's the answer. So I'm going to give you a PDF so that you can turn it sideways and you can zoom in and you can see all there. It's a big thing, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm going to give you the document so that you can refer to that later. Okay. Other questions?
Yeah. So can you speak to, like, in terms of like the different classifications of metrics that you called out, right? Can you kind of speak to kind of what is the, like, how do you handle situations where maybe, you know, given within the organization or customers, there's different kind of type of customers, there's different tiers of the organization. And so you might have some metrics that, like, they might be vanity metrics for, let's say, managers, but then for teams, they might be something else or vice versa. And so, like, what's your thoughts on understanding that, like, you know, metrics are not really a one size fits all, right? It's based on the context. And like, what's your kind of coaching conversation in terms of like thinking about metrics in these four ways and how they might vary based on who's actually consuming the metric, or et cetera?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that you said there that we need to separate out. The first thing that you said was different kinds of customers. Now, when I say here different kinds of customer, I hear either persona or market segment. So that's the first thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So each set of metrics, whatever you use, is typically associated with a market segment, and there are personas that are associated with that market segment. Okay. So, for example, I gave the example of the pizza delivery for one type. One person operating in the office versus at home is going to have a different threshold for what good looks like. Okay, so you have to think about it from the contextual perspective for sure. But vanity metrics are where we're looking at a metric to pat ourselves on the back, but it's not actually doing anything. We'll go back here. The definition of so right here, a metric may be a vanity metric if it does not predict desirable outcomes or customer satisfaction, it does not drive improvement and does not have a target, and it does not indicate general health. That is probably going to be a vanity metric. And I don't care what level of the organization you're talking about. So part of the conversation with people about metrics is, look, this is a vanity metric because because of this definition right here. What do we want to do about it? See, it's kind of like, when you're patting yourself on your back to make yourself look good without being good, that's because of some type of fear. It's a psychological thing going on. Okay, so I would pull out any and all coaching skills that you have at that time to understand what they're afraid of, and whatever coaching framework you use associated with making people have psychological safety, regardless of what level of the organization they're at, I would go to that before I say, hey, this is a vanity metric. I would try to understand better why they're saying that what you believe is a vanity metric is a fitness criteria, a key KPI. If you see a bunch of things, management, they have this thing, a bunch of KPIs, right? I'm sorry, maybe that they're not KPIs. Look at the definition of a vanity metric. Okay. Other questions?
Got one more in the chat about KPIs.
Okay, let's see. It says any blind spot. Okay, wait a second. Okay. Would you use KPIs as explained here today to assess team and individual performance for purposes of promotions, raises, et cetera? Any blind spots on or risks to consider in doing so? Any other metrics you would recommend for performance appraisal? I don't believe that lean agilists are, if you're really doing lean and agile, you don't do individual assessment of people. You do the team assessment or team of teams assessment, and that includes money. That's the way I believe. So look at the enterprises you're working in, and you'll see that there's a gap there in most large companies. They're still doing individual performance metrics, annual stuff, and it's very problematic, right? Guys, I have to go. I actually have, this was my lunch break, and I actually have work to do. I'm sure you do too. I want to thank everybody. Ben, I'll send you the PDF that you can post, and I just want to thank everybody for giving up their lunch hour or their hour on this Friday afternoon. Okay.
All right. Well,
Thank you
great.
so much.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Jack. We
Jack.
really
Great
appreciate it.
All right.
presentation.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thanks.